Welcome. Today is Tuesday, May the 12th, and my name is Shanika Hallback. I am your accounting advisor, and I am excited. I am super excited to be here with you today. All right, I was not here last week because I actually got my wisdom tooth pulled, and so I am all better this week, and so we are ready to go with all the things. All right. So we're going to jump right in. We have been talking a lot about a lot of different things. And if you are joining me for the very first time, my name is Shanika Hallback. I am your accounting advisor. I help churches, small businesses, and individuals get financially organized. Get financially organized. That is my mandate. That is my task. That is what I have been called to do. And so, in preparing churches, we talk about a lot of different things that churches in general just need to have. And one of the things that have really been on my heart is I've been talking to a lot of churches who need to get movement going, get movement going. And what I mean by that is a lot of times we can find ourselves being stuck because of our mindset and just because of how we think, old ways of doing things, old systems, things like that. And so I want to encourage you, if you're listening to this and you are a pastor, um, that has a congregation and it seems like it's been challenging to shift them to the next place. And or if you are a part of a congregation, a part of a finance team, a part of a board, or anybody that makes decisions, I want to challenge you to really, really challenge your mind and be okay with change, be okay with doing something different, be okay with doing something new. The definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again. And one of the things that really kind of pain my heart is the progression of the progression of the church, and how some of our churches are not really progressing at all. All right. And we think that we're doing great, but actually we're behind the times. And so maybe I'll do a live on that another day. It's just something that's really been on my heart. And so maybe I'll do a live on that another day. But today, I want to talk to you a little bit more about some tax breaks. Now, we've been talking about tax breaks, and let me make a disclaimer. I am not a tax advisor, right? I am an accountant that has this knowledge, and I want to share it with you. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some more tax breaks, things that you can really hone into, so that as a church you can, and as a pastor and or a leader, right? So I specialize in churches, again, small businesses and individuals, and I help churches get financially organized. And this is one of the ways that you can be financially organized. Knowledge, right, allows you to walk into a level of freedom. So we talked about a lot of tax things in this season as we're kind of planning, and I'd love to help some of you. If you have those questions, also, I'd love to help you with your accounting and get organized. So let's just jump right into it. We're not going to belabor the time, as we would say, any longer. All right. So today we're talking about, all right, five tax benefits that clergy may not know about. Are you excited? I'm excited for you. These are things that can be easily overlooked, and I'm going to give you a high level overview. And I also want to make a disclaimer. Um, Reach out to a tax advisor so that you can get more information and more detail. All right. So let's go ahead and move with this here. I've got two screens up, so if you see me looking one way, that's because I'm managing the screen to my right. All right, the first one is parsonage and exclusion. Parsonage exclusion. All right, this is one of the biggest tax strategies for clergy. So if you're a pastor or a minister, if you work for a pastor or a minister, if you're in a church and you're looking out for your pastor or your minister, you want to share this with them. Right, parsonage is it really, you have to be a qualified minister. So if you have not understood what a qualified minister is, you just visit the rest of my videos on YouTube. You'll be able to see that. Right. So for qualified ministers, parsonage exclusion, what this does, it excludes a part of your income from federal income tax, right? From federal income taxes. So if you have a home that's giving to you, or a home that you are living in, not one that you're living in from time to time or occasionally, but one that you're living in that's provided by your church organization, you could save some money from federal income taxes. Okay. So your home must be provided by the church as compensation. All right. You must be a minister, and it must be in your employment documentation, right? So those are the biggest things. And here's the thing with that: even though you get a tax break from federal income with this parsonage exclusion, which means that a church gave you a home to live in, it's a part of your contractual agreement, employment agreement as a minister with them, you will still have self-employment taxes. One thing the IRS is saying: listen, we will give you a break on this federal income tax, but this self-employment tax we're going to tax you on. And I know when we start talking about taxes, people kind of tune out a little bit, but it applies to all of us. And it is my job to help us to be equipped so that we can gain financial freedom, and so that we can have knowledge that will allow us to plan well. All right. So again, while it is excluded from income tax, it is still included for your self-employment tax. And this is one that's misunderstood by a lot, and it's underpaid a lot. So you just want to kind of navigate that space and pay attention to that. All right, let's move on to the next one, which is self-employment tax deduction. Self-employment tax deduction. So ministers who have dual status, that means you work for the church, you also may have a 9 to 5, right? The portion of your let me say it when you're treated as an employee for income tax purposes, right? So you're going to be treated as an employee under your ministry for income tax purposes, but that self-employment, but you'll be treated, you'll have self-employment taxes for Social Security and Medicaid. So for your income, you're treated as an employee. For your self-employed portion, it is Social Security and Medicaid. And this is where many people get it confused. So half of your Social Security, not your Social Security, your self-employment tax can be deductible up to 50%. All right, on your personal tax return. So, right on the personal tax return. So again, seek for a tax advisor to kind of walk through this. I'm just kind of giving you an overview. So this is really important for tax planning. You could literally tax up to, or deduct up to 50% of your self-employment taxes. And this is for those ministers who have a dual status, right? For self-employment. Okay. The other one is it also applies to your salary and your housing. So self-employment taxes applies to both your wages, right, and your housing allowance and your parsonage. So we talked about housing allowance a couple weeks ago. You want to go back and look at that. So many pastors forget to include the housing part when, especially when you are filing your taxes, and this is really an IRS risk as well. So you want to look out for that. So you need the proper calculations, and make sure that your numbers are calculated properly, documented properly, so that if this self-employment tax deduction, right, applies to you, then you will be able to take it. All right, let's move on. My goodness. Let's move to the next one. Let me change this really quick because this is supposed to be unreimbursed ministry expenses. So let me get this all squared away for you. That's what happens when you put these PowerPoints together rather quickly. All right. And if you have questions as we're going through this, feel free to ask. I'll try to grab them. If I don't grab them while we're on this live, I'll definitely get to them after the live. All right. So let's try that again. All right. Number three is going to be unreimbursed ministry expenses. So what does this mean? This is not necessarily recommended, right? So if you are a minister, or really anybody in the ministry, you want to make sure you keep documentation to have the church to reimburse you for expenses that are ministry related, just in general. But as a minister, sometimes you are spending money and you're not necessarily being reimbursed by the church. I would not recommend this. It's actually one of the IRS. This is kind of going away a little bit, I would say. The IRS is not really accepting just anything for unreimbursed ministry expenses. That means if you purchase your own flight, if you maybe purchase some supplies for the church out of your own pocket, and the church did not necessarily reimburse you, you can file those unreimbursed ministry expenses on your taxes. However, you must have what the IRS calls an accountable plan. An accountable plan. And an accountable plan, you can look it up. It's IRS regulated. It must be an approved reimbursement arrangement, right? And without this plan, pastors and ministers are not allowed to deduct unreimbursed expenses. So you just want to make sure that any expenses that you are taking or spending on the behalf of the ministry, that you take it through the proper channels, take it through your accountant, make sure that you have your receipt and your documentation, you can get reimbursed by the church. But if for some reason you don't, you do have to have what the IRS calls an accountable plan in place already in order to deduct those from the churches and from your taxes. And what that entails is you must have your receipts, the dates, the purpose. I mean, your records really, really, really do have to be sharp. All right. So with this, I recommend keep a record of it, go through your church, get the reimbursement. But if for some reason you have unreimbursed ministry expenses, there is a way that you can get a tax break for those when you file taxes. All right. So let's go to the next one. Number four, mileage. This is a huge one, especially for you ministers out there that travel, for your staff that support those ministers that travel. You really want to understand what mileage looks like. Now, you can get deductions from for on your taxes for mileage. And the key difference to this is ministry versus commuting. So if it is a normal distance from your home, say from your home to the church, right? That is not necessarily deductible because the IRS says that that is a normal distance. But if you travel between ministry locations, say you're going from your church and you have to travel to Ohio, right? And you drive your car. All of that mileage would be deductible, right? So in order for it to be deductible, you must keep a mileage log. That means the date, how many miles you drove, the purpose, and the location, right? You don't want to do estimates or any of that. Some apps allow you to kind of track that. And so maybe getting an app that allows you to track that would be key. So just keep that in mind. All right, let's keep going. Number five, educational expenses, right? So all of those ministers out there that are furthering your education, you could potentially get a tax break for educational expenses, right? Even, of course, I know that there are some churches that cover educational expenses as a part of their budget for their leaders, things like that, right? But you must maintain and or improve your current skills. So whatever those educational expenses, it needs to be tied to what you're doing. Either it is helping you to maintain your current skills and or improve your current skills in your current ministry role, right? You cannot qualify for a new necessarily profession. So things like seminary class is good, but any, like, if you want to go get a science degree and it has nothing to do with your ministerial role, you could definitely do that. But when it comes down to this particular clergy educational expense, you want to make sure that it is related to your current role, right? Tuition, books, conferences, certifications, travel to different educational sessions, those things also apply. All right, so keep those things in mind. And what am I going to say? Make sure you keep your documentation, your reason, your receipts, and all the things, because clean documentation is a requirement and a must. All right, so let's go to the next one. Number six, health insurance premiums. Health insurance premiums. So this just reduces your adjusted gross income. So you don't necessarily have to itemize to get this benefit, but it's a very valuable tax break, right? So you must be self-employed to be eligible, right? This applies if you're not already covered under another employer plan, right? So this includes things like Medicare, or a medical, dental, long term. There it goes. Medical, dental, or long term care. All right, and it must be in the leader's name or the pastor's name, and or a eligible and qualified. Jesus, my Lord, qualified plan. All right. So, income limitations may apply. Deductions cannot exceed what the IRS says is earned income. And so, you want to make sure that you are calculating that properly, right? So, I know sometimes this can be a bit of like a challenge for you if you're like, I don't know what all of this stuff is and what it means. And like I like to say, just get somebody else to do it. And that's fine. There is somebody else that can handle this for you. But at least if you're hearing me mention these things, these are things that you can kind of think about and at least have in your mind as you are going throughout the year to properly prepare for when it's tax time. All right, let's go to the next one. I have eight of these, so we're at number seven. All right, so the number seven is retirement plan contribution. So this is more tax deferred growth. So contributions, these type of contributions will reduce the current taxable income. So earnings grow tax deferred over time, and this helps with long term financial stability. And so there are contribution limits. You need to look at the annual IRS contribution limits, and it includes employees and employee and employer contributions, right? And so, if you have a retirement plan, which I definitely recommend for all leaders, we outsource that at our company, but definitely get some retirement plans going if you don't already have some, especially if you are moving towards that retirement age anytime soon. You want to make sure that you have that in there. And we already talked about the housing allowance in strategy. So, distributions can be designated as housing allowance, and this can reduce your tax significantly in retirement. So, it must be planned in advance. Okay. All right. Again, reach out to a tax professional for more details about this. This is very high level and an FYI. All right, drum roll. We're going to the eighth one. I don't know if you can guess it, but number eight is going to be charitable contributions. All right. So I know some people feel certain ways about charitable contributions and deducting it from your tax. Be governed by your own belief system, but there is a tax break for this. So you must be a qualified organization. So only 501c3s qualify for this. All right. So if these are given to individuals, it does not count, right? But the church must be recognized as eligible. So if the church is recognized as an eligible 501c, then some of your charitable contributions can be deducted. You need to have proper documentation required. So again, receipts, letters, non-cash gift, letters and notifications and things like that. And so this is subject to income limits. So deductions are limited based on your adjusted growth income, and excess contributions can be carried forward. All right. So let's review the, we move this over here so that I can see it. The five strategies that most churches and leaders do not necessarily know about are: number one, your parsonage exclusion. You have your self-employment tax deductions. You have your unreimbursed ministry expenses, mileage deductions, educational expenses, healthcare premiums for those that apply, and retirement plan contributions and charitable contributions. So I want you to take these eight things that we talked about today and really, really think through your current living status and see which one of these potentially apply. If you have a finance team, you want to take these to your finance team and ask them to help you, right? If you have a tax accountant that you work with on a yearly basis, you want to make sure to do that. But this is how we get into financial freedom. This is how we not only just take the numbers and say these are our numbers, but this is how we grow individual. And the reason why I kind of been focused on the individual for these last couple lives in ministry is because there's a lot going on in the media as it relates to taxes and pastors and all the things. And so as a church, you want to make sure that you take care of your leaders well. You want to make sure that you have the information that you need. All right. And so again, I provide accounting, bookkeeping, budgeting, financial coaching. I would love to come to your church. I would love to do some financial coaching. I would love to take you on as a accounting client of mine, and I would love to answer your questions. I always provide a 30-minute free consultation, and so You are more than welcome to be a part of that. You're more than welcome to take me up on that consultation offer. And what that consultation looks like is you would just come in and we would kind of walk through the health of your church and really understand where your church currently stands, some things that we can help your church really navigate through. All right, let me see if I can't get. Uh, I want to put the QR code if I can up here on the screen for you really quick. Let me see if I can find it before I let you go. All right, if you do have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat. All right, here it is. I'm going to put this QR code up. Again, this is how you can reach out to me directly for any questions that you have, and or to see how well is your church is doing. You can just scan this QR code. It'll take you right to my calendar and it'll allow us to sit and have some time together. All right. So blessings on your day and blessings to you. Go back and watch the replay. Share this with somebody who needs it the most. All right. And we'll see you right back here next Tuesday at noon. Blessings and great day, everybody.